quick heads up before we start. The title of the game is pronounced I, not AI. I pronounced it the latter way a few times early on in the review, so just keep that in mind. AI The Somnium Files is a visual novel 3D puzzle hybrid released in September 2019, though I only recently had the opportunity to play it, over 2 years later. Oops. Regardless, here's a quick review on it. Because AI is a story-heavy title, I'll only be using footage from trailers and early gameplay to keep spoilers to a minimum. The story stars Kaname Date, a detective trying to solve a murder case of a woman found in an abandoned amusement park with one of her eyes plucked out. As is the case with detective stories, what seems to be an isolated incident quickly blossoms into a wide web of intrigue, with several seemingly unrelated individuals being pulled into the proceedings as potential suspects, sources of info, or even further victims. It's these other people that bring out the multiple aspects of AI's gameplay loop. The main narrative is told as a visual novel, with a stationary view of various environments as you talk to them or interact with the world around you to uncover clues, with a few interrogations where you produce evidence to build a case, and quick time events to save Date when things get hairy. But it's when you reach an impasse with the other methods that I's unique element comes into play, syncing. This is the 3D puzzling I mentioned earlier, where the game shifts to a third-person perspective as you enter a person's dreams. These bring Psychonauts levels to mind, or the dungeons of Persona 4 and 5 for a Japanese comparison. These are bizarre worlds based on the suspect's important memories. In these worlds, called Somniums, you can recreate their past actions or interact with objects in a certain way to draw out important information, with some Somniums offering multiple solutions that each offer different clues for Date to follow back in reality. These branches can lead to wildly different resolutions for the Somnium in question too, with my personal highlight being a Somnium where you can break away from the expected path and forge your own. While the early Somniums can seem straightforward, later levels are incredibly challenging and force you to weigh your options carefully to proceed. The game is fairly short. It took me about 30 hours to get a platinum trophy, but I intend to go through it at least once more armed with the power of hindsight. Thankfully, the game lets you go back to any point in the story to explore alternate Somnium solutions and scenarios. The story is well told too, with a small but well-written cast portrayed excellently in both English and Japanese, with several moments, both joyous and tragic, that are bound to stick with you long after the credits roll. Even Ota, who seems pathetic in the beginning, gets a moment to shine, as bizarre as that may seem when you first meet him. And as a bonus, some of the secondary cast are openly LGBT+, which seems to be a rarity in Japanese games, though I'm happy to be proven wrong. For example, Mama, an informant who works in a bar in Shinjuku, is explicitly stated to be gender neutral in her bio. Compare this to Lala from Persona 5, who also runs a Shinjuku bar, but whose gender identity is kept ambiguous. On the other hand, I have to echo other reviewers in decrying the abundance of crude humour. Any amount of dirty jokes turns me off of anything, to be fair, but I could at least stomach one or two to establish a character. Unfortunately, every scene is punctuated with a crude joke or three, even when it makes no sense for the context. There is plenty of humour in the story, don't get me wrong, including quips and gags in the middle of fight scenes, but this unfortunately goes beyond that and ruins the moment in some cases. One particularly egregious moment occurs near the end, when Date has to give up certain, let's just call them items, to not get demonetized more than I already have for mentioning Mama, in order to distract some henchmen so he can save a friend in trouble. For some reason, he's incredibly reluctant to do so, even prioritizing them over his friend until his partner talks some sense into him. While the joke may have worked if he was just upset to give up his inventory, that the joke runs for so long and that he even needs to be scolded into doing the right thing destroys all the tension in what should have been the climax of the story. I still like Date, but I like him in spite of a large part of his personality, not because of it. In fact, I'm relieved that the sequel follows a new protagonist. While the director is partly why Date is the way he is, hopefully the new face means the bottom tier humour will be dialed down, or better yet, removed entirely. There are a few other jokes, mostly within Somniums, that also come off as tone deaf and make me wonder if they were originally written for scenarios with lower or no stakes, but it's really the dirty jokes that really took me out of the experience. Simply put, some jokes just don't land. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed The Somnium Files. It tells a strong story well and really makes you care for everyone involved, and balances most of its tonal shifts well too, ensuring you never know what's waiting for you around the corner while still being able to bring everything together for the dramatic conclusion. The gameplay is fun as well, and I loved how complex the Somniums become as you get deeper into the story. I'm happy to give it a resounding 3 out of 4, and honestly, the crude and mistimed humour are the only things keeping this from getting the perfect score. Again, I hope Nirvana Initiative excises them from the formula to produce an even tighter narrative and gives us more Somniums to explore. Now that they've established a gameplay loop, I look forward to seeing how they can push their unique gameplay style further. I for one am excited to see how else we can manage the time system, for example, and hope we get more Somniums with drastically different routes through them, as with the example I gave earlier on. Thank you for reaching the end of this review. Please let me know what you thought of I in the comments, but please avoid spoilers. And if you don't have I, what did you think of this review, and did it convince you to give the game a try? As it's over 2 years old now, you should be able to get it for a good price, if you're interested. Thank you all again for watching, and as always, have a great day.